Daniel Suarez announces he is leaving the 96 car after just one season, and the NASCAR Truck Series gets a familiar facelift. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Midweek edition of the show, and the silly season news continues to spiral out of control at this point. We'll be talking a little bit about that later on in the show, but we also have some other things to discuss, not related to silly season for once, not even related to the NASCAR playoffs, honestly. But before we get to all that, I want to thank today's sponsor, LubeGuard. LubeGuard continues to be a great supporter of the show. They are the makers of Cool It evaporator and heater foam cleaner. Cool It features fast and easy application, no tools required. It works in all sorts of vehicles, including hybrid and electric. It's easy to use and leaves a clean, fresh, and long-lasting scent. Cool It removes contaminants and maximizes HVAC efficiency. It's fast, it's effective. You can check out Cool It for yourselves at O'Reilly Auto Parts, Amazon.com, and Walmart. Once again, a huge thank you to LubeGuard for being a great supporter of Out of the Groove and of NASCAR. Now let's get to the news. We'll start with some news out of the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series, or should I say, the all-new, renamed once again, NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Marcus Lemonis, CEO of Camping World and Gander RV and Outdoors, announced yesterday that the NASCAR Truck Series will be once again named the Camping World Truck Series starting in 2021. This is after, I guess, about 2 years of it being called the Gander and Gander RV and Outdoor Truck Series. Gosh, that was a lot of syllables. Camping World Truck Series honestly sounds a little bit better in my opinion, but of course Camping World, a very recognizable brand. The new logo is still going to be rectangular to kind of match what the current NASCAR Cup Series and NASCAR Xfinity logos look like. Now again, to clarify, this isn't a new sponsor. Both Camping World and Gander RV are both owned by the same people. It's just they're choosing which brand they want to put out first and foremost. They started with Camping World, switched to Gander RV, I guess, to promote that brand, and now I guess they want to go back to Camping World. That's all it is. It's not a new sponsor. It's the same sponsor, just changing the name, I guess. And from Adam Stern, Marcus Lemonis, CEO of Camping World, says he wouldn't be surprised if he and NASCAR come up with some new financial incentives for teams and drivers in 2021. Marcus Lemonis has already had a hand in like the Triple Truck Challenge. That's a thing that's happened. There's added incentives, drivers by winning specific races might get like a $100,000 bonus, things like that. Most of that's coming from Marcus Lemonis and the sponsor, Gander RV / Camping World. So definitely Marcus Lemonis making a huge investment in the NASCAR Truck Series, really helping a series that a couple years ago didn't seem to be in a great place. That series seems to be on the upswing more than anything right now. More competitive trucks this year than any recent years I can remember. And if Marcus Lemonis continues to just infuse cash into the truck series, that's great for teams and great for competitors in that series, honestly. So love to hear this. Great that Marcus Lemonis is taking such a serious interest in the NASCAR Truck Series. Now, there was another big news story announced this morning, not particularly NASCAR related necessarily, but the IndyCar Series announced today that they will be running a street course race next year in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, calling it the Music City Grand Prix. The track configuration is actually quite interesting. If you look at this map, it's roughly a little over 2 miles in length. You see it goes right by the Tennessee Titans football stadium. It actually goes over a bridge. You see these long kind of side-by-side straightaways going over a bridge over the river. Really interesting configuration. Now, this of course has absolutely nothing to do with NASCAR. I will be shocked if we find out the NASCAR Cup Series is also running the Nashville street course next year. That would be, I don't think that's happening next year. But NASCAR is racing at Nashville Super Speedway, an oval track near downtown Nashville, next year. This will be the first time the Cup Series has raced at Nashville Super Speedway and the first time any NASCAR series has raced there in about a decade. Last year, NASCAR held the end of season awards banquet in Nashville, so this is newsworthy because NASCAR has made it very clear in recent years that Nashville, Tennessee is a significant market and is the kind of city that they would like to take over, I guess, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of motorsports fans in and around that Tennessee area, and NASCAR wants to take advantage of that. And now it sounds, no surprise, honestly, like IndyCar is wanting to get in on some of that action as well. These are two of the biggest motorsports series in America, both making huge investments into the Nashville, Tennessee area. So that is noteworthy. NASCAR still, I think, wants to add the Nashville Fairgrounds short track to the schedule, maybe a few years down the line if they can work some things out. NASCAR's mentioned running possible street courses, and they've mentioned running them around NFL stadiums like this IndyCar circuit is. So if this goes well for IndyCar next year, perhaps we could see the Cup Series running a Nashville street course sometime soon. I don't think it's gonna happen next year. I would be shocked if they drop that announcement on us out of nowhere, but maybe someday, especially with the next gen car, perhaps. We'll see. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there as well. Now, the rest of this video, we got to talk a little bit more about silly season because Daniel Suarez made an announcement yesterday that he will be leaving Gaunt Brothers Racing at the end of the 2020 season. Suarez is in the middle of his first season driving the 96 car. This is also the first year in young Gaunt Brothers Racing's history that they have attempted to run a full 36 race Cup Series schedule, and now it sounds like that relationship is going to be quite short-lived. I'll show you a clip of the video Daniel Suarez posted to social media announcing the news.
I wanted for you guys to hear this directly from me, that unfortunately I won't be returning to Gaunt Brothers Racing and the 96 Toyota Camry next season. I don't really know what the future holds for myself just yet, so you guys stay tuned for those news. I don't even know exactly what is going to happen yet, but hopefully something good.
So now the question is what's next for Gaunt Brothers Racing, which we'll talk about in a minute because that could be extremely interesting and a bit surprising. But the other question is, of course, what happens to Daniel Suarez? He's the 2016 NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. He now has almost 4 years of full-time Cup Series experience. He does have some funding behind him with CommScope/Aris and Coca-Cola, of course, but I certainly don't think he is at the top of the current free agent market. You know, there's guys out there like Eric Jones, who's won a couple of Cup Series races. There's Bubba Wallace, who brings a ton of funding to the table. Clint Boyer, a veteran. Matt DiBenedetto, who I think still has a lot of potential. Of course, Kyle Larson's still out there. We talked all about that earlier this week, so Daniel Suarez is in there somewhere. He's in the mix, without a doubt. But the question is, where does Daniel Suarez land from here? I would say of all the available rides, probably the most likely would be the 43 car for Richard Petty, basically replacing Bubba Wallace. As I talked about in my episode on Monday, Richard Petty Motorsports co-owner Andrew Murstein has made it a clear initiative since he got into NASCAR back in the early 2010s that he wanted to increase the amount of diversity in NASCAR, which is why he hired Eric Almirola, who is Cuban-American. Of course, that's why they hired Bubba Wallace. And so now, looking to fill that seat once again, Daniel Suarez being the only Mexican-born driver in NASCAR's top series, that could be exactly what Andrew Murstein is looking for. And I've also talked about how now that they've lost Bubba and are probably going to lose a good amount of sponsorship with him, they need a driver who can bring a decent amount of funding. I don't know how much funding Daniel Suarez really has. Aris continues to seemingly decrease their investment into him and his team each year, but he still has Coca-Cola. He still is, I'd say, very marketable. A lot of fans like Daniel Suarez, so he likely would bring some funding to Richard Petty Motorsports or whatever team he ends up going to, but personally, I think all signs point to him maybe being the front runner for the 43 car, but obviously that remains to be seen. We don't have any announcements imminent that I know of. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on where Daniel Suarez goes. Where things get really interesting, though, is when we talk about some of the new reports around Gaunt Brothers Racing's future. Jim Utter from motorsport.com reported yesterday that Gaunt Brothers Racing might be lined up to receive some serious Toyota backing. Of course, technically Gaunt Brothers Racing is a Toyota team. I think they get very limited support from Toyota Racing Development, and especially not from Joe Gibbs Racing, so they're kind of on their own, which is why they run 30th most weeks. But according to motorsport.com, this might be the team Denny Hamlin and Toyota are looking at sort of taking over. Like I mentioned on Monday, originally Hamlin and Toyota were interested in buying part of Richard Petty Motorsports, converting that team to Toyota, and that would have likely kept Bubba Wallace in the seat, but that deal seemingly fell apart. Recent reports from Bob Pockris the other day said that Denny Hamlin and Toyota had turned their attention towards buying the assets from Germain Racing. Now that we know Germain Racing is looking to sell, that still might be possible. That might be part of the equation in all this, but now it sounds like maybe Hamlin and Toyota are focused on sort of putting all their energy into Gaunt Brothers and vaulting that team into the next Toyota-backed organization, maybe a Joe Gibbs alignment in some capacity. Not sure how that would fit into the NASCAR rulebook. But according to motorsport.com, there's a massive reorganization potentially on the horizon for Gaunt Brothers Racing. Here's what Jim Utter said in his article. He said, once complete, a reorganization of Gaunt Brothers would include the acquisition of a charter, influx of new investors, new sponsors, and expanded manufacturing support from Toyota, according to multiple sources who declined to speak on the record because the deal is not complete. However, the additional capital investment could put the organization on a level similar to that of former Furniture Row Racing, sources said. Now again, it's not confirmed yet that Denny Hamlin is necessarily involved. In fact, this could very well be completely separate from the Denny Hamlin, Toyota, maybe Germain Racing deal that could still be happening. I mean, you never know. Toyota could add 2 new teams next year. We really don't know. And there is still no rumors really as to who the driver might be. It's been rumored that if Denny Hamlin and Toyota get a deal done and start up a new team or buy up a team, good chance Bubba Wallace would get the tap on the shoulder to be their driver. But I don't know if that necessarily fits into this new Gaunt Brothers Brothers Racing news, rumors, whatever you want to call it, I think it's possible, definitely possible, that Bubba Wallace ends up driving the 96 or whatever they may rebrand it to, the new Toyota TRD-backed team. If that happens, I think undoubtedly that will be a more competitive car than Richard Petty Motorsports was this last year. It sounds like Toyota is on the cusp of adding a true successor now to Furniture Row Racing. Of course, Furniture Row Racing won a championship as a Toyota/JGR satellite team. Since then, Toyota's sort of been scrambling, looking for a possible replacement. Levine Family Racing became a Toyota team in 2019, but they didn't really have great backing from JGR. This year, JGR and Toyota increased the support, and Levine still didn't run particularly well. And then with the pandemic and everything, Levine has already announced at the end of this year that team's closing. So this does sound exciting that Toyota maybe finally has found a team and maybe has found the proper investors to really build up a new Furniture Row, a new competitive organization that can continue to put Toyota on the map, gives them another spot to put one of their up-and-coming drivers in the next few years. This is exciting for a lot of reasons, because we might be taking a team that was not competitive this year and making them competitive next year, which I think is great. We want to see more competitive cars capable of winning in the NASCAR Cup Series. But I am a bit concerned because, well, Toyota and TRD doesn't have a great history of maintaining their satellite organizations. Of course, Furniture Row Racing, they were with Toyota for about 3 years and ran really well. Won races, and obviously in 2017 won the championship. But a year after that championship, they were forced to close. Now, there are a number of factors involved beyond just Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing asking for a lot of money. They lost their biggest sponsor at the same time, of course, but that certainly was not a great look for Joe Gibbs Racing, given that they then took Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Pearn from Furniture Row Racing and brought them in-house. That certainly didn't look great. I mean, it's just business, but it certainly was a little shady on JGR's part. Of course, this year with Levine Family Racing, the newest Toyota satellite team, shutting down after really just 1 year of involvement. Again, that doesn't look great for JGR or Toyota, even though I believe Levine Family Racing closing down has much more to do with the shutdown, the pandemic, COVID, than it does anything JGR or Toyota was charging them. But still, after the Levine Family Racing announcement, David Wilson from TRD went public and said, yeah, we'd like to add another Toyota team in 2021 or 2022, but we're going to look at add a team that's maybe a little bit more established, because Levine Family Racing, a very small family-owned organization, they'd never been competitive until they joined Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota. So Wilson made it clear that they would look for a team that was maybe a little bit more established, which is why Richard Petty Motorsports made a whole lot of sense. They've been around for a decade now. But if they've pivoted now to Gaunt Brothers Racing, which again, like I said earlier, this is the first year they've tried to run a full-time schedule. They've been a part-time team the last couple of years before this year, and they still don't even have a charter. So I'm sure Toyota would want to buy up a charter to make this possible. Gaunt Brothers Racing is not an established team by any stretch of the imagination. Now, if Toyota's got a bunch of investors, if they've got a bunch of their own money that they're pouring in, they're going to bring a lot of their own people over there, then yes, perhaps they can make it work long term. But that definitely makes me a little bit nervous, because Gaunt Brothers Racing is, I would say, even less established than Levine Family Racing was before the last couple of years. So I don't know, that definitely concerns me a little bit. I'm also skeptical that they're going to be able to turn Gaunt Brothers Racing into a championship contender overnight. I mean, Furniture Row Racing, yes, they won a championship as a small satellite JGR team, but they'd been around for like 10 years before Toyota got involved, and they'd even made it to the championship for like the year prior when they were still a Chevy team. So it's not like Furniture Row Racing was a terrible team that was being propped up entirely by JGR and Toyota. No, like they had Cole Pearn and Martin Truex Jr. They were doing pretty well even before Toyota knocked on their door. I just don't think you can compare current Gaunt Brothers Racing to like 2015 Furniture Row Racing. Their Gaunt Brothers Racing is still a little bit behind. They have a lot more catching up to do. So we'll see what happens, but that's the news from yesterday. Toyota might be looking to make huge moves this offseason. We could see maybe more than one new TRD supported team rise from the ashes. And of course, whatever Toyota does next year could likely dictate where Bubba Wallace and his $15 to $20 million of sponsorship ends up as well. That could be huge for a small kind of upstart team like Gaunt Brothers Racing is. So we'll see what happens. Of course, still no word as to how Hamlin's involved, what the Hamlin team might look like, if it's involved with this Gaunt Brothers deal. We don't know all that just yet, but more silly season rumors to fuel the silly season fire. But anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you all for watching today's episode. Thank you again to Lube Guard and Cool It for sponsoring today's video. And thank you, of course, for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. We talk talk about NASCAR almost every single day. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and a huge thank you to my fantastic Patreon supporters. Couldn't do the show without your tremendous support each and every month, so thank you for that a ton. Got some more videos planned for later this week. Of course, the Bristol night race, the final race of the first round of the Cup Series playoffs, is Saturday night. Again, kind of a short week, more or less, so I will be sure to see you guys between now and then, but hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you all in the next video.